I'm here. How are you, everyone? Did you really think I was going to land from there? There's no way. Welcome back to What Drive Us. I'm Jaume Soler, and as I said before, and this is the episode 4, the final episode of this series and podcast. Over the last 3 episodes, we covered a lot of ground. If you have not watched them yet, you can go to my channel and watch them from episode 1 to 3 and then come here. In the other episodes, we talk about what motivation actually is, the psychology behind great leadership, and why so many people end up burned out and disengaged at work. We went through theories like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-determination theory, remember guys, SDT, transformational leadership, and the job demands resource model, JDR. And today, instead of me doing all the talking, because I'm a little bit tired of it, I'm joking, I wanted to bring in someone who has spent years and years studying and teaching all of these concepts. He is my general psychology professor, Professor Hill. I think there's something really special about getting to sit down with someone who not only knows this research inside and out, but who also teaches it every single day to students like me. So I'm really excited for this conversation. So guys, wait here, I'll go to his office and we are going to interview him. See you there. So here we are with Professor Hill. Thank you so much for coming. Today we have a lot of questions, so let's jump right into it. I'm sure our audience is going to be so proud to have him here, to ask him some questions and to share his knowledge he has from those years. So first of all, I would like you to, if you could tell us your background, like what drew you to psychology, and in the first place, what areas you find most fascinating about psychology.
Yeah, I thought about going into psychology in high school. Never went that direction right away. I went into ministry, was in ministry for 30 years, and then got into psychology because people come into the church for psychological help. So that was a big part of it. And I've been in psychology as a therapist for 13 years, and then got into teaching 5 years ago. And what's really interesting to me is just how different people think differently about situations and just what make them tick.
Yeah.
Why do they think and do the things they do?
Yeah, that's so cool. So in the episode 1 that you are going to watch later, when I submit you the podcast, we talk about motivation. For you, what is the motivation and where it comes from? Like the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So if you could share with us about what do you think is the biggest misconception people have about motivation, especially in the workplace, because I'm trying to relate it a lot with the workplace. So if you could share us your ideas.
Yeah, a lot of times I think we're all motivated to get the best out of life. And sometimes we're motivated to please other people, which is the extrinsic, which isn't bad. But in business, you want to please your customers, but then you don't want your customers to manipulate you so that they're pleased, so you give them like free products or something because they're upset. The intrinsic motivation is just like in business, I want to create a business gonna help supply my family with money, people I employ with money, a product that people are going to enjoy, so everybody gets something positive out of it. Some people in business are motivated to try to scheme and scam people so that they tell them it's going to be a good product and then it's not a good product, and then that harms consumers. And so the big challenge, I guess, of motivation is we have both internal, external, and sometimes it's hard to determine what people are more using is more important to them.
Yeah, totally, yeah, absolutely. So we also talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. and how people need to have their basic needs met before they can focus on higher goals. So, what do you think most workplaces today actually understand and apply that? Or do you think they are missing the mark?
Yeah, I don't know how many people in business would know Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So that would be interesting to know but I think Maslow just basically identified what humans generally have basic needs. So you don't really need to understand Maslow to know that you need food and water and security and safety. You need to find ways of finding happiness in life. And I think, I don't think it's a business's responsibility for getting people to be more actualized, as Maslow would say, but the things that businesses provide can help people enjoy life, but it's not business's responsibility, because some people could buy products and be addicted to just shopping and say, well, it's the business's fault because if they didn't offer this product that I love, I wouldn't be spending all my money on it. Well, that's not really a basic need, so it's a desire. So I think businesses ultimately, their motivation is to provide a product that is going to be desired by the customer and be able to have a profit margin that's going to sustain more innovation and pay people's wages. So I think that way it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. And then we also talked in the episode 1 about the self-determination theory, the SDT. So I would like to ask you, from what you have seen and studied during your life, which of those three do you think is the most commonly neglected in the workplace and why? We are talking about the 3 core psychological needs every person has.
So it was competence,
Autonomy and relatedness.
Autonomy and relatedness. Yeah, autonomy is big because it lets us realize we're individuals that are in relationship with others, and that also helps with relatedness. So I believe humans are designed to be in relationships. So we thrive in making connections, whether it's friends or whether it's romantic relationships. The autonomy, even in relationships, you're just two individuals who are going through life together. And if you're in business with a partner, there's a level of autonomy, but you've joined yourself together to accomplish a certain goal in your business. So I think they're all very important, and I don't know if you could say one is more important than the other, because any one of them, if it's out of balance, maybe that's more of what it is. If anything gets out of balance, it can start to cause problems.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say one is more important than the other ones.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So then in the episode 2, we talked about the transformational leadership and emotional intelligence. And I think personally, a lot of people, especially students going into business like us, assume that leadership is mostly about being smart or having the right strategy for selling. But from a psychological perspective, it is different. It is different. So what do you think are the most important qualities that actually make someone an effective leader?
Well, it's interesting, the transformational leadership was the focus of my Master Divinity Masters. So it's being able to identify for people where they can grow and giving them an environment where they can learn without punishment, but not without consequence. So holding people accountable for their actions, but also giving them the freedom to make mistakes, because we all will. And I think the big thing with that is the autonomy of an owner of a business is you have structures in your business of who's going to do what job to accomplish what task. And you don't want to micromanage people because they've got the education, hopefully, why you hired them to do the job. So a good leader is going to, I believe, create an environment where people can try new things, can fail, can talk things over without embarrassment or shame, so that people can think beyond just the basics. Because if there's a fear-based environment in a business or in anything, people tend not to be authentic, and they feel like if they do the wrong thing, they're going to lose their job. So I think a good business owner is going to be one who is willing to listen to where people are coming from, who try to help people become the best they can be at their job.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also talked about the emotional intelligence that I said before, being one of the most underrated leadership skills, because emotions are so important. So, do you agree with that? Do you think it's one of the most underrated leadership skills? And do you think emotional intelligence is something you are born with, or is something you can actually develop during your years studying or living?
I think emotional intelligence is more about how we grow up, because we can grow up in environments and families where emotions are not learned to be controlled. So little kids don't control their emotions. That's why they have tantrums and they cry. But what we, as parents, we help them realize, okay, yeah, you're sad and you don't like this, but what are some ways that you can calm yourself and see things from a different perspective? So I think a lot of it's learned behavior, and we can learn it just by watching our parents or siblings. But I think it's really important, because I know for myself, when I was little, I didn't have a lot of emotional intelligence because I had a very hot temper. I got really angry really fast, and a lot of it was because I had bigger older brothers, and I could use that energy to try to push back against their size. So I had to learn how to control my anger. So I'm better at doing that now because I see the consequences, both good and bad. And it also, when you care about people, you want them to have a good engagement of conversation. So the better we are at our own understanding of our emotions and what causes them, we're all going to struggle, but being responsible for how we react, I think, is really important. So emotional intelligence is, I think, for leadership is very, very big.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. And here's one I'm really curious about. We talk also about how transformational leaders actually activate intrinsic motivation in their employees. And I would like to ask you if you have ever personally experienced a leader like that, someone who generally changed the way you thought about your work or your potential, like someone you thought you were some way and he changed your perspective.
Yeah, I had, well, one of my brothers was one of those, and then another mentor that I had that helped me realize that some of the ways I was thinking about myself were inaccurate. So they helped me see myself from a different perspective. And so their leadership helped me, so that intrinsic motivation was more demeaning and not supportive of myself. So it encouraged a better, more positive internal motivation to accomplish things, not to prove myself, but just because this is who I am, and what I'm accomplishing is just an expression of who I am.
Yeah. So then in the last episode, episode 3, I talked with my audience about burnout, disengagement, and what companies get wrong, why employees just are fired, or why they get wrong their business. And I think burnout feels like something people are talking about more than ever right now. So why do you think burnout has become such a widespread issue in today's place? And like, what has changed from, for example, yesterday to today, to be talking more about burnout?
I believe because of the internet, people can leave their work locations and go home and continue to work and be connected. So a lot of people, and I know myself, I can leave work and go home and continue to work. So there's no time for rest. There's no time for play. So work becomes more of the whole day experience rather than 8 hours. So I think that change of how, especially like with COVID, everybody was working remotely. So now it's like, well, I can work all the time. People in the trades might be different, that you can only work so much of that, and that might help them because they can't work in construction, like at someone that builds homes or remodels homes. There's a time limit that you can work because of noise or things like that. So I think it's just the computer environment has really changed the idea of burnout, and then also expectations that we have. It's probably not new that a lot of people identify my worth is in my work. So the more I work and the more I produce makes me feel like I'm a better person, rather than saying I'm a good person and my work is just an expression of who I am. It's not my identity. So I think that creates burnout also.
Okay. Yeah, and finally, from a psychological standpoint, for the episode 3, what do you think is the single most effective thing a company or a leader can do to prevent burnout among their employees?
Probably encourage them to take time off, and that they are allowed not to work when they leave work, if that's what they're doing. Giving people permission to have a life outside of work. I mean, because most people want to get higher in an organization, and they might sacrifice family time, which might increase divorce rates. It might increase lack of connection with their children if they have them. So there's a lot of strains in their life, and then how are they just enjoying their own hobbies and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so just to make like a conclusion, I would like you, if you could, just watch the camera and say something to our audience, telling like if there's something about motivation or leadership, what we talk about, or even workplace psychology that you think is really important that we didn't get to cover, for example, now, or something you would want our listeners to walk away thinking about?
I would encourage people to find their identity in who God tells them they are, that they're loved, that they have value, that they have individual skills and abilities that other people have similar, but theirs is unique to them, and to just embrace that they are the only one of them there is, and they don't have to look like everybody else, act like everybody else, but just continue to strive for the things that bring positive joy, positive accomplishment, not to please others over pleasing themselves. And I think as long as it's in a business perspective, be open to other people's insights, perspectives, so that they might be able to reveal to you things that you might be missing because of your biases. So the more people you can have input from is going to help you have a bigger perspective of what could be beneficial for your life and for business.
You listening to it, huh? So yeah, perfect. Thank you so much for your time. I think it was a lot of important information that I'm sure I'm gonna watch like 3 or 4 times to get all of it. But yeah, thank you so much for your time, for your important thoughts, and just I wanted to I'm grateful that you shared your ideas with me and with all the audience. So yeah, just thank you so much, and I hope we see you soon.
All right, thank you
so much. Oh my days, guys. As you have seen, that was such an incredible conversation and meeting with Professor Hill. Honestly, way better than I expect. And I already had really high expectations. I'm being serious. Thank you so much, Professor Hill, when you see this podcast, because it has been an incredible experience. Thank you for your time, your insights, and for just being so generous with your knowledge. I really appreciate it. And to everyone listening now, thank you so much for following along on this journey through all the 4 episodes of What Drives Us. We started by asking a simple question. Do you remember it? Put it in the comments. It was what actually drives people, and I hope that after everything we have covered, the motivation theories, the leadership styles, the burnout research, and this conversation today, you have a much righter answer to that question. The psychology of motivation and leadership isn't just academic stuff. Forget it. It's practical, it's human, and whether you end up running a company, managing a team, or just trying to understand yourself and the people around you better, this stuff matters. I'm Jaume Soler, and this has been What Drives Us. Thank you for listening, it was a pleasure, and see you in the next one.